The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of KSMQ Public Service Media Incorporated or its assigns.
Hello and welcome to On Cue. I'm your host, Eric Olson. On today's program, we'll revisit the history of Austin during World War II with Mower County Historical Society curator Jamie Tim. She has some great items to share with us today. Later in the program, Trey Mewes joins us to talk about his reporting over the years of how Austin's population has changed. And Stephanie Leathers gives us an update from the Vision 2020 committee working on downtown windows. It's going to be a great show. Stay tuned for On Cue.
From KSMQ Television in Austin, this is On Cue, connecting interesting issues and interesting people. On Cue.
The Mower County Historical Society has a great new traveling exhibit featuring World War II. Jamie Tim is joining us today to talk about this exhibit, as well as the items she put together featuring Austin World War II veterans. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
And we should say that this is part of the state has this traveling exhibit, and
yes.
And you Mower County chose to put your own spin on it a little bit.
The Minnesota Historical Society has a group of 5 or 6 different traveling exhibits that kind of work their way around the state. And this is actually the 3rd one we've had from them this year.
Okay,
so.
And this one is called Minnesota Homefront World War II.
Yes.
So it's a lot of, is it written things? Is it documents or physical items?
It's mostly just big text panels that are up on, they're taller than me. And there's about 8 or 10 of them, and they talk about all different things that happened in Minnesota here during the war, and there were some really great things that I didn't even know about.
Wonderful stories. And folks, Jamie has an interesting job, I think, as the curator at Mower County. So when you go in there to the museum and see the local flourishes or touches, this is Jamie's work going through this. How did you set about finding some of these items? We have a few of them in the studio here.
Well, a couple years ago, our site did an inventory of all of our objects. We have about 16,000 3D objects. And with that inventory, they all got put into a computer program. And that program is wonderful because it lets me type in search terms like World War II, military, soldier, that sort of a thing. And I can search and get a list of items that have been flagged with those terms. And that's kind of how I start to just kind of look at what we have. Some things I've never seen before. I've only been there for about a year, so I'm still discovering different objects that we have. So that's kind of how I start with objects, is just kind of a broad search to see what we've got.
And are there stories associated with the 3D objects? For instance, you have a uniform you brought in.
Yes, absolutely. This uniform was worn by Lloyd Carter. He was a veteran from World War II, and he actually got sent to Iran during World War II, which I didn't realize that we had soldiers there. But a lot of the Lend-Lease items that were being sent from the United States, like food and that sort of thing, to get to Russia, they went through Iran and the Middle East. So the Allies had to protect their supply lines through there. And so Mr. Carter went there to help protect those supply lines.
And so that's his
uniform.
Wore when he was in service out there.
Yep.
And I'm sure his family or relatives are very happy to have that on display.
I hope so. We also have pictures of him in the exhibit as well, in Iran in uniform, not his dress uniform.
You have another item, a poster or a sign that says, "Where," W-E-A-R, has gone to war. What's that all about?
Well, one of the themes that I talked about in the exhibit is how people on the home front here at home in Mower County had to experience rationing, and things weren't always as easy to find as you would think. So this poster encourages people to take care of your shoes, because if you break your shoes or they wear out, rubber was rationed, so new shoes were not always easy to find or get. And so this just encourages them to take care of what you have, because you have to make do, and you maybe have to fix something rather than completely replace it.
Wow. And you have, regarding the Mower County piece of this exhibit, you've in your mind, you said, split it up into 3 different categories.
Yeah, I tried. It's always easiest to do an exhibit when you try to think of what are the main themes you want to focus on. And so as I was doing my research, I kind of felt like I kept seeing these three main ideas popping up, which was that everyone was fighting the war. It wasn't just the soldiers. The people back home were fighting too. So in their home lives at home, things like rationing, scrap metal drives, buying war bonds, that sort of thing, they were participating in the war from their home life. It also affected their work life, their jobs. Hormel added hundreds of jobs. Lots more employees were added. Farmers, there was a huge labor shortage for farmers, so there were lots of jobs available there. So people could help the war effort through their work as well. And then the final theme that I chose was fight, because there were obviously the soldiers, both men and women, who left to go fight. So I tried to follow those three main themes in the exhibit.
And you brought along some of the home theme here to show us, to kind of exemplify. One of them that you're about to bring out is quite familiar probably to folks here today. And you have to put on some gloves because these are valuable items.
Yes, for all of our museum objects, we try to make sure that we avoid touching them with our bare hands because the oils from our hands can...
Well, don't touch our table.
Oh, your table would be fine.
I didn't dust this morning. Okay.
I did bring a Spam can because you can't really talk about World War II in Austin without a Spam can.
And what's interesting about it, is it just the design has changed over the years and just that it's...
Yeah, and I don't have an exact date for this particular can, but it was probably around the World War II era. But a lot of Spam got sent over to Great Britain and Russia through Lend-Lease.
Is the Spam still in there?
No, it's not.
Oh,
we took it
just
out.
Checking.
There's a slit cut out in the back, so it's not there anymore. And then I brought one of the things that I think is probably the most interesting.
Hold it up like that.
Like that.
Yeah. What do you have there?
This is an identification pin. After Pearl Harbor, the Army actually told Hormel, well, you're now considered a war facility because you're providing so many things for Lend-Lease and for the troops that you have to stop giving tours. You have to make sure you put lights up, have security forces around, and all of the employees had to be fingerprinted and photographed, and they had to have these pins. And they couldn't get into work unless they wore it in. They wouldn't be allowed into their job no matter what. So I thought this was one of the more interesting things that...
And what is that? There's a number on the bottom. Is that a social security number?
We think it's the social security number. I haven't been able to confirm yet, but I'm pretty sure it's the social security number.
My goodness, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
So for a short time it became an actual war or
it was a war
government
facility. Yep, because they were sending so much food over to the U.S. military and all the Allied troops, really.
But you have a lot of letters back and forth from folks.
Yes, as part of the traveling exhibit from the Minnesota Historical Society, they have several of these panels that they interview different people about writing back and forth to friends, family, soldiers, and different things. This particular one talks about a woman who, she did kind of a newsletter because she had so many brothers in the service that she created a newsletter to send to all of them.
Oh, those are her brothers right there.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, okay, and here's another one.
And this lady, she was a very talented artist, so she drew all these wonderful pictures on envelopes that she sent to her husband, who was fighting overseas.
Oh, look at that artwork.
Mm-hmm. And it says that unfortunately about half of them were destroyed in a fire, but then in some attic somewhere they found a bag full of the rest of them. So they still have half of them, which is awesome.
Oop. And
James LaBelle. I brought this one along because I thought he was pretty special. He didn't come home. He jumped on a grenade to save two of his buddies in a foxhole, and he was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor for his actions. But he has some pretty interesting quotes. Just, they're living in foxholes, but he's writing home, and is my sister engaged yet? Tell my sweetheart I'll be there maybe in 3 years, maybe I'll be home in 3 years, but tell her to wait for me. Just concerned about the things back home, but you can't even imagine what they're seeing in the fighting, so.
In just a minute and a half that we have left, I want to go kind of away from World War II and capture your graduate work in art or in posting historical documents in public places. I'm fascinated with like Facebook and LinkedIn. How are those things changing history and how you catalog it? I would imagine that that's a kind of a new issue, this whole digital thing.
Yeah, we're really trying to grow our Facebook page right now, and we have a new campaign that we're calling Dig History, because you can dig history however you want. You know, some people like to dress up and reenact, and others like to read stories, watch historical movies. And we're really trying to launch this on our Facebook and our Twitter. We have Twitter as well. We're trying to launch this campaign about dig history, and these social media things make it so much more accessible. We can post pictures of, photos that we have in our photo files that are unidentified, and we can post a picture on Facebook and see if anybody out there knows who it is or where it was or what business it was, that sort of a thing.
Well, this has been very accessible and fascinating, Jamie. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you very much, and you should come see the exhibit.
Yes, we shall. We will. Jamie Tim, curator locally here for the Mower County Historical Society. We'll have more on cue coming your way right after this.
You can watch On Cue anytime by visiting the KSMQ TV website, ksmq.org.
All right, and welcome back to On Cue. I'm Eric Olson. We're going to get some tales from the road now. Our check-in with the Austin Daily Herald, and reporter Trey Mewes is here this time around. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, yeah, you bet. Been reading your work both in the paper and in the new magazine, which I have to say I really enjoy. The Austin and the Albert Lee versions, which is kind of new.
Yes, we, as you know, Austin Daily Herald and Albert Lee Tribune, we ended up starting our magazine division about 5 or 6 years ago, and we started a magazine called Southern Minnesota Magazine. Of course, about in February of this year, I believe, we decided that we would serve our communities much better if we specialized in Austin living and Albert Lee living. So that's what we decided to do. So we branched off into 2 separate magazines. I'm in charge of Austin Living Magazine, which is a lifestyle magazine dedicated to the booming quality of life here in town. So
wonderful. And it's is it seasonal?
It is. It's semi-monthly, I should say. It's semi-monthly, I believe. I believe that's the correct term. So every 2 months, 6 issues a year.
Right, and you can pick that up at
area convenience stores, the Austin Daily Herald, the Austin Convention and Visitors Bureau, pretty much anywhere that you can go in town.
Yeah,
you can probably find a copy.
It's a fun read. It puts a nice face on the region. Other things you've been working on, though, besides the magazine, you also wear the hat of reporter, which you've been for many years here. And one of the topics that is very close to you and you're passionate about is diversity in our region.
Yes.
And how we're doing as a region and a community as far as the, I guess you would say, the changing face of Austin. Is it still changing? Are the numbers shifting?
It is. It is. It's actually really surprising, I think, for a lot of people to realize that not only Austin, but Minnesota and the U.S. as a whole is changing rapidly as far as our demographic makeup. Austin was really dealing with how to welcome Vietnamese refugees in the 1970s and 1980s when the Vietnam War, the after effects of the Vietnam War were still being felt throughout the nation. Austin was accepting refugees from Vietnam, from Laos, from Cambodia.
So this is not new.
This is not a new issue by any stretch. It's just this becomes a bigger issue because there are so many people here now. One of the things that I've noticed in my research, I've only been here for a couple of years, but one of the things that I've noticed is that Austinites didn't really notice immigration, diversity, culture as a whole until about 10 years ago, when the immigrant population, the refugee population here in Austin really grew. You saw a lot of immigrants come to Austin in the late 1990s and early 2000s. You know, you've seen people like Riverland's multicultural advisor. I'm thinking specifically of Miguel Garate, who came here in 1997, who first started working at Hormel and then who got a job at Riverland and has been a huge part of the community ever since. You have people like him coming in really early and really setting the stage for a lot of these talks.
And a word of mouth. Just visited with Miguel not too long ago, and he said the number one reason that more people come is that the folks who are here say the people are nice, they like the community, and there's good work to be had. And that is why, you know, it's better than any media campaign or anything like that. It's just that people tell families. And you mentioned that this has been going on for a while. There is a little infrastructure that certainly could grow, but as far as educating folks who are new to the community, the immigrant population, I know even here at KSMQ, we produced a video for renters for the Association of Homeowners and did it in many, many languages this time around.
Yes.
To accommodate the different languages. And we have, of course, the Welcome Center in Austin, which is somewhat unique.
Exactly. The Welcome Center was started in the early 2000s. Specifically, when you're looking at census information, demographics information, you're finding that more and more people are leaving greater Minnesota, either by moving to the cities, moving to larger metropolitan areas, or because they're simply passing away. And so population decline in greater Minnesota and a lot of outstate communities is a serious concern. Not so with Austin. Austin actually grew by 1,000 people, more than 1,000 people, according to the U.S. Census.
I worked in western Minnesota just the early part of this decade and for a few years. And you could see every community that at one time, darn near every town you go to, it was at one time you could see that it was much larger.
Yep.
And now it's like a fourth or a third of the downtown. The buildings are still there, but there's nothing there.
Yep.
And you really see that pattern emerging.
Yep. And one of the interesting things is that you talked about word of mouth before. You're finding that people who are already here are telling people back home about Austin. For example, I spoke with a documentarian in 2011. His name is John Wetterell. He partnered with a couple of people to produce a documentary about where Austin's Hispanic population is coming from, specifically Austin's residents of Mexican descent. One of the most interesting factoids that I've found about immigration here in Austin is that 90% of the residents here who identify as Mexican American or of Mexican descent are actually from this very tiny province in Mexico called Oaxaca. And you wouldn't imagine that so many people would be there. Austin's Hispanic population was about 3,800 strong according to the 2010 U.S. Census. So 90% of that's about 3,400 people that identified as you know, being of Mexican descent and are from that area.
What does the community need to do more of? Are there growing pains? Are we communicating with each other the way we should?
There are a lot of growing pains. I think anytime that you have a different culture coming into an area, you're going to have that clash. You're going to have that issue of culture. You know, one of the reasons why immigration is such a big topic is because it's so stigmatized. People look at so-called illegal immigrants as taking away jobs from Americans, as coming in and taking away benefits and things like that. And you know, then you have people on the other side saying, you know, they aren't the demons that you're making them out to be. They are people. They have the same wants and needs as desires. And so you're having a lot of conflicting conversation here. And Austin has seen that too. You know,
like it seems like we've been through this a little longer than other communities have, so that there is some cross dialogue happening.
Time and time again, you saw a whole bunch of forums in the early 2000s organized by the City of Austin, dedicated to reaching out and finding leaders both within the residents who have been here for a long time and amongst the new communities sprouting up. You've seen a lot of conversations, a lot of cultural conversations being brought up by Austin's Human Rights Commission, by Austin Public Schools, by Riverland Community College, by KSMQ, by the Austin Daily Herald, by a whole bunch of entities who want to figure out the answers to this that are a long time in the coming.
Trey, we got to leave it there. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and Trey Mewes at the Austin Daily Herald. We've been talking about diversity, immigration, and Austin living. And check it out. The next issue will be at a convenience store near you. And our Vision 2020 update comes your way right after this short break.
Queue up your own comments for On Cue and send them to us at onq@ksmq.org. On Cue's Vision 2020 segment is brought to you by Hormel Foundation, Games People Play, and Turtle Creek Estates.
All right, talking about Austin downtown, a destination point right now on our Vision 2020 update. And Stephanie Leathers joins us from that committee. Welcome again.
Thanks, Eric.
And downtown, lots happening, including, of course, the Artworks Festival and some other things regarding Main Street project. What's going on?
So the Vision 2020 Destination Downtown Committee and Austin Main Street project, as well as the businesses, are hosting artists to create murals in the windows downtown. So.
Okay, and the idea is with the Artworks Festival, we were talking before and I wasn't connecting the dots. It's like Artworks Festival has artists, downtown artists, connection.
Exactly.
Okay, it took me a minute to get that. And it's fun to look at all the different works, what people are creating in the windows.
Of course, why not host some local talent of our own and really showcase their artwork, bring people downtown to look at it, and support the Artworks Festival the 24th and 25th of August. So.
And then you're working on this Main Street initiative. Talk about that a little bit?
The Main Street project is actually going to provide all of the supplies for the artists. So that's really generous of them to support as well, and they'll be providing all of the supplies.
Mm-hmm. And I know going downtown, we have quite a few businesses. There's not a whole lot of, I guess you'd say, available space. There are a few, but part of your mandate also is to try to think of ways to attract businesses downtown.
Yes, we're always thinking about spaces downtown. How can we utilize what we have? And then also, how do we look at new business opportunities and figure out how we can attract people to downtown? We're working on that, as well as with some of the other Vision 2020 committees, is to kind of unify and figure out how we can, bring interested parties to Austin.
And you don't work on things like roads? I mean, when I think of attracting downtown, you think of how convenient and getting there. Is that really where you're at with your group? Or?
Not really where we're at. We're really focused on generating business for those businesses downtown currently, and then also filling the spots that we do have. So.
Okay, so it's finding potential suitor people to come in, businesses that might want to come in.
Correct, and making it attractive, which the Austin Main Street project has done a lot of work to revitalize, the outside of the buildings downtown. So we think we have a beautiful downtown. So we're proud of it, and we're looking forward to, hosting the artwork festival, supporting with the artwork in the windows. So.
And sometimes the news is great, but it makes you change your plans a little bit. The last time we were together, you talked about maybe a music stage in an open area downtown, but maybe more good things will be happening. That project's delayed for a little bit. It
is delayed, but we are looking forward to continuing that at some point in the future, where we set aside the funds that we fundraised for the stage, and we're hopeful it will find a home in the future, and that we will actually host another event possibly in October for the community. I know you came down in May and enjoyed the music, so we'd like to do that again for the community.
Like a block party?
Some kind of block party in the fall, yep. So music and just to get everyone together and obviously to enjoy downtown as well.
What are some of the other city groups that you work with on a regular basis with there must be a lot of them.
There are. We work with the Utilities Building initiative within Vision 2020. There's just all sorts of, anything that we work with, we're reaching out to other community groups and businesses. So we're always kind of collaborating with the other Vision 2020 groups, as well as the city, the HRA, the Austin Main Street Project. So
all of them.
We appreciate everyone's support. Yep.
See you at Cloud Cult concert, maybe?
Of course.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Stephanie Leathers from the Downtown A Destination Point Committee of Vision 2020. I'm Eric Olson. That'll do it for us right now. We'll see you next time on Q.
On Cue is a production of KSMQ Television in Austin, nonprofit public television.